Tobago. Welcome to Positive Vibez, Aljoscha.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be on your program and looking forward for a nice hour with you.
Wonderful. Aljoscha, before we discuss Eric and the amazing things that this organization is accomplishing in Tobago, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself, how you ended up in Tobago, and eventually how you started working with Eric?
Well, when I was about 6, 7 years old, I watched many of the programs of Jacques Cousteau, and I decided to become a marine biologist and operate or manage a marine and environmental research center somewhere in the tropics, which led me then to study biology and also become a diving instructor. And then I did my master's and my MPhil thesis actually in Trinidad on four-eyed fishes. Well, fell in love with the country and with a beautiful lady. And which led to me coming regular since 1992. And I opened up a consultant company in Trinidad for environmental issues and sustainable tourism in 98. And worked mainly in the organic agricultural sector, sustainable tourism sector, as a consultant for a variety of multilateral donor organizations, mainly with rural NGOs. It took a long circle, and in 2013, there was a consultancy regarding a potentially marine protected area in Northeast Tobago for the FAO. And I had worked in Northeast Tobago with the communities since quite a while. And we were able to do this study together with my good friend and colleague, Dr. Keith Gibson. And we more or less found out at that point that the government intends to consolidate the protected area management system throughout Trinidad and Tobago, especially in Tobago, and there would be a ridge-to-reef system between a forest protected area and this marine protected area. At that point of time, I also had just finished a larger EU consultancy for eco-agro-tourism in St. Lucia. And the family sat together and the decision was made either to depart Trinidad and Tobago to new shores in Europe, or we find a place in Charlottesville where I could be a bit less in front of a computer, a bit more in the sea again, and work directly with communities. And this opportunity opened up. At the same time, premises were being vacant or became vacant in Charlottesville. And everything fell perfectly into place for something I had waited for 30 years. Just happened.
Wow, fantastic.
And the idea of having this kind of research center was lingering around since 20 years, together with the director of Environment Tobago, Patricia Turpin, who owns considerable land in Charlottesville. And that was a dream of her and her husband. So we formed that organization together with two other directors, Keith and Adana Gibson.
Wonderful. So Aljoscha, you are now the director and CEO of Eric in Tobago. Can you please tell us what is Eric and why was Eric set up in Tobago?
Eric is a civil society organization. However, it's not the normal model that you often find in Trinidad and Tobago and the wider Caribbean. It's really an expert organization. We are community-based. We have very strong linkages to communities. We have advisory councils within the community, but the board itself consists of citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, residents of Tobago, people that were born here and grew up here, as well as foreigners that live in Trinidad and Tobago since quite a while. But it's really kept very small at this point because we are a young organization. And we have learned over the years working with CSOs that a small board is something that helps to overcome the situations in the first 5 years of an organization. And then later on you can expand your board a little bit more. So it's a small organization established 2011 with a board of senior experts in sustainable development, tourism, marine biology, reef ecology, forest ecology, and capacity building for rural communities in the Caribbean. The second question was,
why did you choose to set up Eric in Tobago?
Because it was just a perfect timing and location. A, government policy regarding protected areas changed. B, we all directors of ERIC are deeply familiar with Northeast Tobago. Everybody has worked here almost for 10 to 12 years. So we knew the stakeholders quite well. We already have gained a certain level of trust by the communities that often are a bit skeptical of outsiders setting up organizations. We had a great opportunity to get support from funding organizations like the United Nations Small Grants Program. The embassy supported us, and it really brought many previous ideas into fruition on the location that was always envisaged.
You mentioned that a lot of Eric's work includes working with and engaging communities. Why is working with communities so important especially coming from the perspective of a marine biologist? Shouldn't you just be swimming around and counting fish and taking fish samples? Why is working with communities so important to you?
It became very clear to myself and the board that the preservation of the environment and the conservation of the environment in the Caribbean can only happen in close conjunction with the communities, because they are the constant in the entire equation. Experts can come in and leave. They always have an opportunity to go somewhere else, do another job, while the people that are really affected by the state of the environment they live in and are affecting at the same time the state of the environment they live in are the communities. Even governments often don't have the strength, the material resources and the human resources, as well as the interest to improve environmental situations and conservation situations in those rural areas. A government officer not necessarily directly profits from the protection of turtles or not. In order for this officer to do the job really well, it has to be a very passionate person. God bless, we have some very passionate persons in government offices. But the people that live here, they are directly depending on the resource on various reasons. For tourism, for example, and turtle watching tours. So they are affected if the turtles are not appearing because of sargassum seaweed or because of slaughtering, etc. So the linkage between community and the environment is extremely strong in the highly populated Caribbean small island states, which is a big difference if I would compare this to the Amazon or a savanna in Africa, where somebody just could buy 1 million hectares and put a fence around, and really there are not many people directly affected. Here, everything is very close together, and I think the only way to implement long-term conservation and keep situation better the situation is working with the communities and helping them to understand the importance of their natural heritage. And I think most people understand, but the circumstances often do not allow them to act differently. Once they're presented with a choice, the vast majority of people would choose the way that preserves the environment. It is a sustainable way of the actions.
Good point, Aljoscha. Aljoscha, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back with more about the non-profit, the charitable organization, ERIC. So stay tuned. We'll be having much more after the break.
Yeah, man, from it positive, so we have to lock it in,
Positive Vibes with Dr. Chan.
Welcome back to Positive Vibes. I'm your host, Dr. Chan, and with us we have today Aljoscha Vodki. Aljoscha, welcome back.
Thank you, Chandra.
Aljoscha, before the break, you were telling us a little bit about ERIC and some of the work that it has been doing with communities. Right now, ERIC has some very exciting research on sharks going on in Tobago. Right. Tobago is known for its beautiful dive sites. I myself have been snorkeling on Buku Reef. Can you please tell us what type of shark research ERIC is engaged in and why this type of research is important?
In late 2015, we were approached by a project called Global Finprint, which is a project that implements the first global shark assessment in many different countries in the world in order to get a better understanding on the health of shark populations worldwide. We lack those data globally. These data are taken by via a device called BRUV, that stands for Baited Remote Underwater Video. It's more or less a quadrupod with a bait arm in which you fill some chopped tuna and a GoPro camera mounted. And these cameras are set at a stretch of reef for about an hour, 80 minutes actually, to detect what kind of sharks and rays are attracted by the bait. We have set, I think, 270 of those cameras, which is a tremendous amount of video data that has to be reviewed. And we have found that, and those data now are fed into this international database and then help to formulate global shark conservation policies. Locally, however, we have found that Tobago is a bright spot for sharks, meaning that despite of some fishing pressure, we still can record quite a set of numbers of different species. And I would like just to give you a comparison. When I did my first dive more than 20 years ago in Trinidad in 1992 and 3 in Tobago, almost every dive, you saw Caribbean reef sharks, blacktip sharks, from time to time a bull shark. That was the norm.
Are these sharks dangerous? Are these the kind of sharks that we should be fearful of? Should we be swimming away from them? Should we be happy that their numbers are reduced? Are sharks in the Caribbean, or the sharks that you've mentioned, are they dangerous man-eating sharks?
No, they are not. It is more likely that you are killed by the part of a plane that drops on your head or a coconut than by a shark. On the opposite, sharks are very, very careful on how to approach their prey. It is globally, the shark attacks is very low compared to many other risks that people might want to take. No, there is no risk to humans from sharks, really. Except, of course, and we had these cases just recently with surfers attacked in Australia. But, when people surf at beaches that have a sign that you should not surf because of sharks, then you should maybe not go there. So, no, there is no threat in the Caribbean. I cannot remember whether I heard, since I'm here, shark attack to a person.
And I would say the same in Jamaica. And the first time I went snorkeling, it was also in the early 1990s, probably about the same time, 92, 93, on my very first snorkeling expedition, which was off the coast of Kingston. I can't remember if it was Bushy Key or one of those keys. On my first snorkel expedition, as I would like to call it, there was a wreck, and in the wreck, the person who was teaching me to snorkel pointed out that there was a nurse shark quite comfortably just resting and it was my first time seeing a shark. Maybe they had seen me before in other places, but it was my first time seeing them.
So actually, on the contrary, sharks are of tremendous importance for a healthy reef. Reefs that are threatened or are affected by climate change, for example, through bleaching, recover faster when sharks are present than when they are not present.
And you're not talking about bleach from a bleach bottle now. You're talking about a specific phenomenon that happens to coral reefs.
When the temperature in the water gets too high due to global warming, yes, that is when corals die, they bleach, and they lose their colors.
And this is not a good thing.
No, that means that the coral reef is dying. That means that all the coastal protection that coral reefs provide to humans and to communities is depleted. That means that food sources are depleted. And of course, from a conservation point, it means that a very beautiful ecosystem that is extremely valuable and has a high biodiversity is destroyed. And we are right now seeing the demise of the Great Barrier Reef, where destruction is tremendous. But coming back to the shark point, we had really a very healthy shark population 20 years ago in Trinidad and Tobago. We were diving here in Charlottesville for 3 years and we did not see a single reef shark. We saw nurse sharks, but we did not see a single reef shark. And we almost lost hope until we started to use those underwater cameras. And we were able to record baby tiger sharks.
Wow.
Baby hammerhead sharks, which is very rare great hammerhead sharks because nobody really knows where they are breeding, so we could be close to something.
Wow.
And so we see something, but the point is what I'm making, apparently some sharks are here, but when they hear a diver or a snorkeler, they just run away as fast as possible.
Well, I mean, you don't blame them.
No, I don't. And this comes back to the point, what happened to the sharks, and what happened to sharks is that Trinidad and Tobago, unfortunately, is one of the amongst the 10, in the first 10 shark fin exporters to Asia.
Exporters to Asia?
Yes. And there is quite a set of amount of illegal shark fishing in the offshore waters of Trinidad and Tobago. It's not really controlled. And this is why the establishment of shark sanctuaries is so very important. And I just read in the news today that the Dutch islands are declaring further shark sanctuaries. So there are some good signs, but we have to be very careful on our shark populations. And the first thing is monitoring them. So we hope that we, through our work, can help. And coming back to the community, on our survey board, we always have what we call our community-based field technicians that are fishermen or other community members that we have trained, and all our research is conducted with those community members. So they're profiting not only from creating a livelihood of being research assistants, but also they are our communicators, because they are communicating back to their peers in the community on how the shark populations are and what is the truth behind it.
Now, I just wanted to go back to this point that you raised about Trinidad and Tobago being an exporter of shark fins. That is something that I think most of us had no idea that was even an industry in the Caribbean, illegal as it may be. But for me, I my initial thought was to food, because whenever I visit Trinidad, I am always on an eating spree. I love Trinidad and Tobago food. And one of the traditional foods that I was introduced to was shark and bake. And it's only recently that I found out that the shark was a real shark, because in Jamaica and across the Caribbean, we call things by different names. So, shark could be, snapper or grunt or marlin. So I only recently found out that what Trinidadians call shark is really and truly shark. Now, in Jamaica, people love to eat parrotfish. So much so that we have these reef builders into becoming endangered species. And right now in Jamaica, there's a campaign to educate people about eating other types of fish, not to eat parrotfish, because they are the reef builders. And the campaign is talking about the importance of sustainable harvest, taking small amounts of parrotfish. They're talking about banning it completely, which is a whole controversial issue because of, the culture of eating and the types of food that we eat. And of course, the importance of the parrotfish as reef builders is being pushed in this campaign. So let me ask you, Aljoscha, in light of your relationship with the community, how important is public education when it comes on to not just the fishing industry and finning, but food and consumer choices as far as shark and bake is concerned? Is that really a big issue in terms of shark and shark conservation in Trinidad and Tobago? So
shark and bake is mainly a North Trinidadian famous food, especially on Maracas Beach. It is not something thoroughly common throughout Trinidad, and it is not common at all in Tobago. A shark is seen in Tobago as a fish meat of low value. A shark would sell at maybe 50 or 60% of the price of normal fish. So it's actually hard to sell. That is one. Two, really, yes, the shark fishing has strongly contributed to the depletion of sharks, but it is not really our local consumption. It is more the export.
I see.
Actually, when you go to those places that sell shark and bake, you will find out that sometimes the shark is substituted by catfish because they actually cannot even get enough enough shark, or they actually have to import shark and get it from other islands to sell it there. And the problem is really that if you look at the fish markets, 90% of the sharks there are sharks before maturity. So there's no restriction on when you can catch a shark at what length, at a mature length. So they had no chance to reproduce. And that is one of the problems. So the population is so depleted that also already the babies are caught. So yes, there is very much need of outreach and awareness campaign. We are starting right now a campaign with schools that is supported by the Pew Foundation, which is a storybook with Sharky, a little reef shark that we can use from primary to secondary schools. And the fear of sharks has to be addressed as well. And you ask rightfully the question. Many people still, when we are afraid, when we put up a picture of a baby tiger shark and said, hey, we are so proud that we found it, we get from the other side of the island requests whether we still can bathe in buko or storge.
Right.
So yes, so the education is very important, and that negative image has to change to an image of a very important, that sharks are a very important aspect of the ecosystems and contribute tremendously to the health of the ecosystems and the maintenance of a healthy reef that at the same time can provide enough food in the form of common food fish like snapper or grouper to the population. And I wanted just to add that I found this very interesting about the parrotfish. What happens often is that other food fish like grouper or snapper are depleted, and then people go to fish that would be formerly rejected but is now acceptable. And you see parrotfish. I see parrotfish on the market in Tobago maybe since 5 years, and the same reason, because the preferred fish is not available anymore or too expensive. Then people have to have no other choice than go to other fish. And suddenly that fish becomes interesting. It's similar to the tuna that sushi is made of. That was a fish that was not highly regarded in Japan until about 30, 40 years ago, until those tuna fish, or those other species that were preferred at that point of time were depleted. Suddenly the sushi tuna became very popular and is now at the brink of extinction.
Wow.
So it changes.
So it's really about sustainable harvest and getting the foods that we want in a sustainable way, not harvesting the babies, not over harvesting, and maybe perhaps having seasons for fishing, seasons where you can fish, and proper monitoring and enforcement. I know in many places like Jamaica we have a abundance of environmental laws, but oftentimes the lack of enforcement is really where the problem lies, not in the lack of laws. So sometimes in Jamaica when people say, oh, we need some laws for this, I'll say, well, there are about 10 laws that address that particular issue, but it's really a matter of enforcement.
And we're coming back to the community involvement. The enforcement somehow has to go into the hands of people that are directly affected. It should be reef guardians or reef wardens. The fishermen should be the reef wardens. They should protect their resource because they are financially depending on it, and their families for food and finance. While a police officer from another island, Trinidad, who is positioned here for 3 years, doesn't have a personal interest in whether these resources are protected. So the people that are profiting from it, that have the highest interest, are the stakeholders that are directly affected, and they should be the stewards of the resource.
And that's an excellent point, Aljoscha, because in Jamaica we have a case where in Bluefields, Westmoreland, the fishermen there, they recognized that their fish stock was being depleted, and they lobbied the Jamaican government for about 5 years to make their own area, the fishing bay, Bluefields Bay, a protected area. So the fishermen themselves, which, you know, in Jamaica you almost never see this type of, the fishermen themselves said this area should be protected, and now they are actually the wardens, protect the area and protect other fishermen who come from outside their community from coming inside the boundaries of that marine protected area. So, and it is, as you say, it is very effective because this is the community members who they know the people, they know the fishermen, they know when somebody's not from there, they recognize the boats immediately and say, okay, that person is not from here, let's watch and see where they're going. And they're the ones who run them out and say, you know, you're in a marine protected area, you need to leave. So yeah, I totally and wholeheartedly agree with you on that point. One other thing I want to ask you about, Aljoscha, you keep mentioning the involvement of the community with Eric. Eric is utilizing a very powerful technique when it comes on to behavior change and responsible environmental behavior. You are using citizen science to help with Tobago's coral reef research and protection. Can you explain to us what is citizen science and how this has been helping with reef protection in Tobago?
Yes, of course. So I think I pointed at it already. We are trying to involve in all our research activities and all our monitoring activities, whether it's the sharks as we talked about, seabirds, forest cover, reef health. We are involving citizens and residents and visitors in taking the data and analyzing the data. And we are very proud of having established programs that are fun at the same time and educational at the other time, on the other side. It's an experience that people from different villages in Northeast Tobago can share, monitoring the reefs, and they suddenly become communicators and messengers of how the reef is developing. It's not deeply analytical science, but it is we are monitoring trends, and that is the important thing for the communities here to understand. Does our reef change, yes or no? And God bless, we could say for the last 3 years we are here and we are taking data. The reefs, we didn't have a major bleaching event or a major coral die-off event. We can say that the health of the reefs for the last 3 years is stable. And so it's not only Eric can say this. 6 members of different communities in North Tobago can say this as well, and they saw this. And they see underwater, and they see if there's a change, and then they can alert their communities. So it's engaging. It is an experience that they like and to do, diving and having this great diving experience, as well as putting some science behind it and recording what's going on. And that helps tremendously in creating the message.
Fantastic stuff. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back to speak more with Aljoscha Vodke about Eric Tobago and the work that they are doing.
Dr. Chan, Positive Vibes. We're on a journey to greatness. Positive vibes, show the world you're the greatest. You know this is Basie representing for Positive Vibes with Dr. Chan. Yo, wow. Kick it and run it and bust the place and all of these things.
Yeah, man. It's always positive. Always informative. Uplifting. What more can I say? Dr. Chan on the Positive Vibe Show. Just like that. Come on, Wimotep, representing.
Welcome back to Positive Vibes. I'm your host, Dr. Chan, and we're speaking with Aljoscha Vodke, and he is sharing with us about the magnificent work that is being done in Tobago, the beautiful island of Tobago. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So Aljoscha, before the break, you were talking about all this wonderful stuff that has been going on in terms of scientific research with the shark monitoring, and of course the involvement of community members. Now, the tendency is for environmental scientists to paint a picture of gloom, doom, destruction, everything that's going wrong. We know there are some really bad things happening in terms of human behavior and its effect on the environment. But Aljoscha, let me ask you, what positive changes or effects have you seen over the years since you have been living and working in Tobago in terms of environmental practices or outcomes?
I would say the most touching positive experience for me was when, after being here and having and operating Eric since 2 years, that community members that I have not met before approach us and ask us for advice. And there are people are more and more interested to volunteer. People are seeing that the involvement of our community collaborators makes a change in their life. And there's positive livelihood and sustainable livelihood to be gained from conservation. And it's often single people that you observe over years that suddenly change into messengers. Mm-hmm. We have one fisherman here, I think, who joined us and worked with us since for 3.5 years now. I think he came on board initially to detect whether we would like to stop net fishing in the bay, or how we affect his livelihood. A young man, 25 years old, a bit shy, but very interested, intelligent, and over these 3 years he transformed into a guardian who can advocate clearly and express himself in forums in Trinidad in front of 25 people. There's a great personal development story, and other people in the village realize this as well. So they're getting more and more interested, and so this engagement, that is something that personally affects satisfies me most, and I really like to see. From a conservation point, I think not for Tobago and for especially Northeast Tobago, the best news is that there was not a major negative event in the last 3-4 years. That's what we can say. It's not getting better, but it's also not rapidly going worse.
What are 2 things that you would like to see happen in Tobago in terms of improved environmental practices?
I think the most important part is supported and meaningful participation for co-management for protected areas. Meaning that co-management is not just a word, and participatory co-management is not just a word, but it's really implemented and actively sought after. Often co-management and participation is more or less a short consultation of people that are overwhelmed by the information that they get. Meaning communities are involved somehow, they are asked, but the information they're asked to decide on is presented to them in a way that they cannot digest. If I give a community council, a fisherman organization, EIA study and architectural drawings and maps of underwater sound maps or surveying maps, most people would not understand.
Most. Once you're outside of a discipline, it's very hard to understand. You know, if you're a financial analyst and you start to give me some risk reports and what types of market are they bullish, I have no idea what you're talking about. So sometimes we speak in a language that people just don't understand because they come from a whole complete discipline or a whole different way of life.
Exactly, and mostly this is the case. So when people are involved in decision making on so-called co-management, and the reality is that they don't have the time, they don't have the possibility to review a 200-page policy document. And if this is not properly translated, so it's intelligibly presented, then people cannot really, people are not empowered.
That's true.
And I think this for me the most important part, that to empower the community stakeholders, that they can fully participate in the co-management of the natural resources. I think that is one. And the other big aspect is large-scale planning. In many of the small island states in the Caribbean, development happens in small pockets. Everybody more or less does a little bit what they want. Town and country planning is not the most powerful governmental agency. So sometimes there are large-scale strategic development plans, but they're not followed up with, and they get lost. So instead of, as an example, developing 20 small hotels that compete for resources, whether it's food or human resources or beaches or locations or attractions, a development that still would allow for smaller resorts or smaller industrial activities, but they are coordinated and suited to each other, makes more sense. I think that policies and strategies should be developed in such a way that people really buy in and not top down. And once they buy in, they should be really followed up with.
So what is the next move for Eric over the next few months or the next year? What can we expect to see from the Environmental Research Institute, Charlottesville, aka Eric?
The move. Right now, I'm just coming from the construction site for our new office and dive center. We are vacating the premises that we used for the last 3 years. We are setting up a new facility closer to the beach in a beautiful setting under 2 large saman trees. It looks a little bit like a small campus. We have school children painting our walls and are very close to other turtle protection NGOs. So we also will create a small visitor center for sustainable tourism products
Lovely.
within ERIC. So that is what you will see in the next 2 months, that our facilities will get a complete makeover, a new look at a new beautiful site. Well, and then in long term, we really will continue to support the co-management activities and hope that we can expand our mandate and attracting larger funders to implement a conservation strategy that Dr. Keith Gibson and I developed in 2014 together with the stakeholders here, which is a vision for conservation for Northeast Tobago. And well, we're working towards this, yes.
Fantastic. So how can we get involved with ERIC? I mean, you offer dive training. You're going to have a beautiful visitor center that we can come and have wonderful, experiential learning there at your facilities. So how can we get involved with ERIC in terms of, if we're in Tobago and we're listening now, we want to get involved in the citizen science, or we're visiting Tobago for holiday, we want to donate our time or energy or expertise or money. What can we do? How can we get involved? Aljoscha?
I think, first of all, is just have a look at the website and the Facebook site. It's www.eric-tobago.org. And on the on the website, you will find lots of activities from citizen science to community activities, going with community kids into an organic garden, from turtle watching to sustainable nature tour guides that we have selected and that work with us. On the ERIC side, you will not only find things that ERIC does, but also a variety of activities that are sustainable and supporting community-based tourism activities. And if somebody's interested to participate in our activities, again, everything is described on the website, from climate change awareness, snorkeling trips, to shark monitoring, to reef monitoring, bird watching, bird monitoring of bird colonies. There's a huge variety, and all our contacts are there, and we have a very fast response rate. Within a day, you should get an answer from us. And of course, anybody who is in Tobago, we would always welcome any visitor and have a quick chat and show what we can do and what we can do with the communities and what the communities can do with us.
Aljoscha Vodke, it has been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for sharing with us. I am looking forward to visiting the Environmental Research Institute Charlottesville, ERIC, next time that I'm in Tobago. So I hope other persons will also want to come and visit and see what's happening, do some snorkeling, do some diving, and find out what has been happening in terms of Tobago and the natural environment there. So, Aljoscha, thank you for sharing with us. Please continue to bring more positivity and light into the world and into our lives through your work with ERIC, the Environmental Research Institute Charlottesville, and your environmental and sustainability work. Thank you so much for being our guest today on Positive Vibes.
Thank you, Chandra. It was really great to have this opportunity, and sending greetings from South Caribbean up to Jamaica.
And the rest of the world.
And looking forward to see you and the rest of the world, of course. All the best.
Thank you so much, Aljoscha. You're listening to Positive Vibes. We'll be right back after the break.